Welcome everyone to episode 106 of EDH Commander Challenge. I'm your host, BT, and today we kick off our Commander Challenge Undisputed Championship Tournament, where 8 of our awesome playgroup members will show you some of their favorite decks as we vie to find out which one will be the Undisputed Champion, wear the beautiful title belt itself, and take home a foil Cold Snap Mishra's Bauble. And speaking of prizes, I want to shout out everyone who tweeted me on Twitter and left comments in last week's video to let me know their choice on who they think is going to win it all. And remember, if that person that you chose does indeed make it and win everything, well, you'll be entered into a draw yourself to win a prize. But what could the prize be? Could be a playmat, could be some custom sleeves, could be a foil rare, we don't know. We'll let you know as we get closer and closer to the finals in the next couple of weeks. Also, if you're a $5 and above Patreon pledge hammer, you'll also get a bonus entry, or of course, if you didn't have the chance to vote, just by being a $5 pledge hammer, you will get an entry regardless. Now, without any further ado, let's start this tournament big with a crazy matchup. Let's go to those opening hands. First, in this corner, with an opening hand of Watery Grave, Polluted Delta, Llanowar Elves, Ponder, Dark Ritual, Vampiric Tutor, Manipulate Fate, and the WUBRG-style general, the First Sliver. He is the prince of all foils, Greg. And his opponent in this corner, with an opening hand of Homeward Path, Stomping Ground, Windswept Heath, Grove of the Burn Willows, Karmic Guide, Wood Elves, Heroic Intervention, and the Naya-style general Marath, Will the Wild, we have the perfect strategist, Philip. Greg won the dice roll off camera, so he'll be starting us off. Let's open up the tournament and start this card fight. Greg plays Watery Grave untapped, taking 2 damage, and casts Ponder. After checking his top 3, he chooses to shuffle his deck before drawing his free card and passes. Meanwhile, Phil plays Windswept Heath and passes. Greg plays Polluted Delta and takes 1 to sack it to net a tropical island from his deck into play. Then casts Mox Diamond, discarding Flooded Strand. Then he casts Llanowar Elves, followed by Manipulate Fate, which he uses to exile the cards Extract, Mist Hollow Griffin, and Eternal Scourge from his deck before passing. Phil draws and sacks his Heath, taking 1 to net Temple Garden into play tapped, then also plays a Stomping Ground tap before passing. During Greg's upkeep, he casts Vampiric Tutor, paying 2 life to tutor a card to the top of his deck, which will then serve as his draw. Then during his main phase, he casts Dark Ritual, and he uses 2 of the mana along with his Llanowar Elves to cast the dreaded Food Chain. He then exiles his Llanowar to it to gain more mana, and then looks to go infinite by casting Eternal Scourge. But before he's able to get the infinite mana combo going, Phil reveals his Heart of the Cards moment by casting Force of Vigor, exiling Heroic Intervention to destroy both Greg's Mox and Food Chain, stopping the combo in the nick of time. Scourge then comes into play, and Greg passes as a result. Phil plays Carpulsan Forest and casts Wood Elves, netting a free Scattered Groves into play tapped, and passes. With his Food Chain combo now offline, Greg simply attacks with his Scourge. Phil declares no blocks and takes 3 damage before Greg passes. Phil plays Rootbound Crag and brings out Marath, Will of the Wild, with 3 +1/+1 counters. Then he pokes Greg for 1 with his Elves before passing. Greg plays Verdant Catacombs and attacks with his Scourge again. Phil uses Marath to get an elemental token, which he uses to block the hit. Then Greg passes. However, during the end step, Phil removes another counter from his Marath to kill his own Wood Elves. Phil plays Homeward Path during his turn and casts Karmic Guide, which he uses to reanimate the Wood Elves he just destroyed. This allows him to also grab another forest from his deck and to play with it. Then he pokes Greg with Marath for 1 before passing. During the end step, Greg sacks his Catacombs, paying 1 life, to net Overgrown Tomb into play tapped. Greg moves right into combat on his turn and attacks with his Scourge once more. Phil removes his last counter from Marath to make another elemental token to block the hit, as Marath is returned to the command zone. During his second main phase, Greg casts Chrome Mox, exiling Rift Sweeper to it. And from exile, he casts Misthollow Griffin before passing. Phil doesn't pay the upkeep cost for his Karmic Guide and has to sack it. Then plays Wooded Bastion and recasts Marath with 5 counters on it. He then moves to combat and attacks Greg with his Elves. Greg blocks with his Griffin, and Phil removes 3 counters from Marath to place them on the Wood Elves, making it a 4/4 and kills the Griffin before passing the turn. Greg plays a Mana Confluence and passes. Phil removes a counter from his Marath to make another elemental token, and then casts Natural Order, sacking the token to go grab one of my favorite cards in the game, Seedborn Muse, from his deck into play. Then plays Slayer Stronghold as his land for the turn and attacks Greg with his Wood Elves. Greg blocks with his Scourge and it dies as Phil passes. Phil gets to untap thanks to Seedborn, while Greg top decks Gemstone Mine, which he plays as his land for the turn. And thanks to it, he now has the mana he needs to cast his general, the First Sliver, removing a counter from his mine and taking 1 damage from his Mana Confluence. With his Cascade trigger, he casts Entomb, searching for and sending Squee the Immortal to his graveyard before passing. During the end step, Phil removes the last counter on Marath to make another elemental token. Phil plays Sunpetal Grove and casts Marath again with 7 counters this time. Then he moves to combat and attacks with Wood Elves. Greg's resolved to take the damage, to which Phil boosts the damage with his Stronghold before passing. Phil gets to untap again, and Greg casts Imperial Seal to place another card in the top of his deck, and taking 2 damage in the process before passing. On his turn, Phil casts Earthcraft and attacks with everything except Seedborn. Greg blocks Marath with his Sliver and takes the rest of the damage. After both generals trade, Phil recasts his Marath before passing. Knowing full well he doesn't have the luxury of another turn, Greg decides to pull a Kid Goku and put everything he has into his next plays, hoping to turn the tide of the game. And thus he casts and resolves one of the toughest mono black cards I have ever seen in Yawgmoth's Will, getting to play cards from his graveyard this turn. He starts by replaying his Catacombs and sacking it, paying 1 more life, to grab Underground Sea from his deck into play. Then casts Dark Ritual, and then uses his mana from Mana Confluence for a green to get back his lost food chain. Then he recasts his Eternal Scourge, but this time, Phil has nothing to stop it. And as a result, due to the Scourge being able to be sacked endlessly to the food chain, Greg now has access to infinite mana. And so he then recasts and sacks the First Sliver over and over again, getting new Cascade triggers until he gets Goblin Bombardment to sack his First Sliver to it enough times to kill, or Aetherflux Reservoir to push his life total over 50 and then sack it to destroy Phil, thus winning the game in one incredible comeback. Phil played a great game, and his force of vigor almost shut down Greg for good. To be honest, when Phil played Natural Order, had he gone for an Eternal Witness or Green Warden to take that card back, he may have won. Greg proved exactly why Food Chain is easily one of the most broken green cards, and had it not been for that well-played Force of Vigor from Phil, he would have won the game even earlier. Do you agree with our picks? Let us know in the comments down below. And if you enjoy our content, consider becoming a patron. Give you access to some sweet bonuses while helping out the channel at the same time. Thanks everyone. Thanks for watching, guys. Hope you enjoyed this week's episode. If you're a fan of EDH gameplay and you like whether it be 1v1 or multiplayer and you want to be part of the ever-growing Commander Challenge family, just make sure you smash the subscribe button and notification bell down below. We do weekly videos. Don't forget as well to like, comment, share our videos, but most importantly, enjoy them. On behalf of all of our members here, I'm your host, BT. Feel free to check out all of the videos in the channel, join our game, it's now your turn. Cheers!